We're pleased to read through the report, and there's more detail for me to go through, but I'm working through that as quickly as I can. But I think it's important that we understand that what the report effectively says is what we've dealt with isn't unprecedented. It means this is what we're going to have to deal with into the future. And what it's telling us is there needs to be a more nationally coordinated approach in terms of preparedness, in terms of fighting these disasters and where the trigger points are for the federal government to get involved, and also the recovery, making sure there's consistency across our country. Whether you live in Stanthorpe in Queensland or Tenterfield in New South Wales, the recovery should be consistent between the states to make sure that no one is felt as though they're left behind. There's some clear direction there around work that we're going to have to continue to do with states, around hazard reduction, around using the data to make sure that that data can be used consistently to go into a national fire rating program to ensure there's consistency, and that knowledge and that data can be used in real time to keep people safe and to help them make the decisions they need to. This is a very important document, one that we'll obviously continue to work through, and over the coming couple of weeks the Commission will start to provide some recommendations around where to from here. But let me say that between the federal and state governments, we've continued and already started on a pathway, not in any way in disrespect to the Commission, but understanding and learning organically from some of the things that happened last year about how we can do things better in making sure that there is some greater national consistency. In fact, we've started that particularly in the recovery process. But the government has acted in terms of that recovery in over $1 billion of the $2 billion already out the door. The last significant piece of that is around the local economic recovery plans, which have to be locally led, not Canberra-led. So we're proud of the fact that we've been able to get money out the door. There's still some work to do with the states, particularly around those programs that we asked them to roll out in terms of recovery. But this isn't about blame. This is about support, understanding, and making sure we get this right. As we heard last week, the Prime Minister and I got a very comprehensive briefing around what we're facing this year. And while it may be a normal bushfire season, we still have to understand there are hot spots where we are at high risk for bushfires again this year. But we are also going to have the agility to be able to pivot into disasters like cyclones and flooding. We are seeing that the Bureau is predicting a 70% chance of a La Nina event happening. And in 2010 and 12, we saw the effects of that. So we have to overlay that with the complexity of COVID-19 in keeping our emergency service personnel safe, but being able to have a nationally coordinated approach that gets our emergency service personnel from one state or the other, or to be able to sit in a boat in a swift river rescue and be able to do that safely from COVID-19. And the states are preparing for that and have done a lot of the legwork for that. They still have the operational management of disasters, and can I say they've done an outstanding job over some trying circumstances, and we'll continue to support them, and we will continue to formalise where those trigger points are, where the Australian government can help to support them.
Minister, what do you think of the idea of national cabinet type body overseeing the bushfire response?
Well, I think that there's actually some merit with respect to that, and the Commission has touched on that around how can we have that agility where a process like National Cabinet can lean into it, where we have consistent lines of communication between the federal and state governments in making sure, the Prime Minister made an unprecedented move this year in bringing in reservists compulsorily. That's never been done in our nation's history, but he took the leadership in understanding that this recovery, and particularly the day one after, was going to be very traumatic for a lot of Australians, and there needed to be boots on the ground. And the only way to do that effectively was to get the Defence Force out there. And I can tell you there are communities that just changed the psychology overnight as soon as those khaki men and women walked through their streets. There was some calm restored, and I think that's where a mature conversation can happen quickly through a National Cabinet process. But we'll continue to work and not preempt what the Royal Commission may recommend, but there is opportunity to build on that process.
Minister, last summer the Prime Minister said that the short reporting time frame for the Royal Commission was needed because fire managers needed recommendations before the fire season started. The Royal Commission hasn't delivered on that. The fire season's already started. I mean, is that a danger now? Are you disappointed the Royal Commission hasn't actually delivered any recommendations that fire managers can use?
No, because fire commissioners from around the country all fed into this Royal Commission. There was an understanding, appreciation by the Commission of what they've done and how they do it. They planned meticulously last year, and I think we just need to be careful about the commentary around that. These are some of the best fire commissioners in the world, if not the world. And let me tell you, they were listening to the advice about what we were going to face last year and this year and what we are looking at this year. They are preparing themselves meticulously around that in terms of the resources they require. There has been no stone left unturned. I think commentary to the contrary is in fact a little disrespectful to our fire commissioners. They cooperated openly with the Commission and will continue to do so, as we will, in making sure that if there's anything else that needs to be looked at, then the federal government will look at these recommendations in a mature and respectful way to ensure that the outcomes that Australians would expect between tiers of government is effective in keeping them safe during natural disasters.
You can see that there were big issues between coordination of the state and federal governments?
No, I think what you have to understand is the state bodies acted very efficiently and in an outstanding way in fighting these fires. That is their responsibility, and I think you would have found that there would have been a lot more lives lost and a lot more homes lost if the planning had not been there and the work that those fire commissioners undertook in extraordinary circumstances that effectively there was no human way of putting those fires out. It was simply trying to manage them. And if they hadn't have been as professional and efficient as they were, we would have seen more disaster. So I think in terms of that coordination, in fact, I approved 50 tasking requests at their discretion within 4 minutes of getting it, with ADF support, whether that be for HERCs to move firefighters around, whether that was about having fuel on the ground, whether that's about using ADF bases. It was given to them in a matter of minutes of them asking. So I think there was great coordination between federal and state governments. And obviously I think where we've got some more work to do is around the recovery process. This is one of the biggest recoveries in our nation's history with respect to a natural disaster. There will be learnings. We've got to be mature enough to understand that. I'm proud to say that the federal government's payments, 60% of those through the DRP payments were out within 40 minutes of people asking for them. They were in people's accounts. Some of the longer term recovery around cleanups and other payments and loans and grants took some time, but some states had bigger tasks than others. But there's no point in reinventing the wheel. It's about getting better coordination and harmonisation.
So Minister, then what's the key tangible takeaway for fire managers from this document?
Well, I think that the clear is around strengthening that nationally coordinated approach, having a clearer understanding and enunciation of exactly where the federal government comes into it. This is not in any way, shape or form trying to take away the operational management of fires from state officials. This is about making sure that there are clear lines, not only for state governments, but for the community, to understand there is a point and a juncture where the federal government may need to bring its resources in, but also about how we use that data and bringing it together. Instead of having a federated response where one state wants to do another, there is real opportunity to harmonise some of that data to ensure we're giving real-time information to people in keeping them safe, and also making sure that there's consistency with respect of the recovery process in ensuring that doesn't matter which side of the border you live on, you're going to get a fair crack at the recovery, not dependent on your state.
Minister, given that these disasters are likely to get worse as time goes on, do you accept the observation in the report that further warming is inevitable over the next 20 years?
And that's what's been factored in to our planning in years past and into the future. And in fact, this year, the BOM tells us that we have to be prepared to pivot somewhat away from a significant bushfire threat to that of an La Nina event. That would in fact mean more cyclones and greater chance of flooding. So that agility within our emergency management system has already developed and is in fact already mature. And I have to say that the states have done an outstanding job in making sure that that's happened in terms of their preparedness and their build-up of resources.